Hello, everybody. I'm Gwen Campbell-Mindes. Welcome to Gwen's Bookish Ramblings. So, Marion Zimmer Bradley's sequel to Black Trillium. Um, the thing about this book is, as I said, this isn't consistent with last week's Blood Trillium, which is a sequel to Black Trillium. There are several points in this book. In Blood Trillium, there are moments when Haramis finds out, one, that the Archimage immediately before her, Bina's mentor was a man. She learns that there is an Archimage of the sky and an Archimage of the seas, and she is the Archimage of the land. And the Archimage of the sky is a man. So in this book, there is no indication that there are archimages of sky and sea. There's no indication of anything except that archimages are perhaps bound to particular countries. And so Haramis spends this whole time, spends this whole book angry with a young man who turns out to be the Archimage of the country of Var, and she says, "Oh, a male Archimage. That sounds so strange," but it wouldn't. It wouldn't sound strange to her if she was aware of an extant male Archimage of extant other male Archimages. She wouldn't think it sounded odd. In the course of this book, we find out that when her friend, the Odling Nisomu Uzan, in this book, when he was dying, she turned him into a harp. That is, effectively dropped his soul into a harp in a desperate bid to keep her friend with her because she was no doubt lonely and scared and wanted to have someone who would stay with her. Okay. But in Blood Trillium, he was said to have died, and there's no indication or implication that she had turned him into a harp. And so what you have here is you have a sequel, and it's a perfectly valid sequel because it's by one of the authors of the original book, but it's not a sequel that acts in concert with Blood Trillium. So to an extent, you can almost decide which of these alternate universe lines you want to believe. Now, as I said, Andre Norton did a sequel to the Trillium series, Golden Trillium, which I'm not talking about because I didn't really enjoy it. Lady of the Trillium, unlike the other Trillium books, picks up literally centuries later. One of the major two protagonists in this book, because there are two protagonists, there's Haramis and there is the girl Michaela, and she is Haramis's some number of greats grandniece, because Anijal and Antar had several children, and those children had children, and Michaela is one of the apparently many children of the king of the combined Labernock and Rowenda, which is not known as Labarowenda in this book. And she basically effectively kidnaps Michaela, along with the boy who Michaela was thinking she might someday be betrothed to, and informs Michaela in no uncertain terms, "You're going to be Archimage after me," and then starts training her. And I think what's interesting about this book is that it's very much about Michaela having been cut off from everyone and everything, and her frankly understandable rebellion against this, because she's not given an option. She's just told she's going to do things, and then she's taken by this older woman, because Haramis, through the first chunk of the book, is trying to give the impression of agelessness and made herself when she was 20-something and has not changed since, made herself look like she was approximately 40 and has maintained a glamour illusion on herself to that effect ever since. It's a matter of giving yourself respect, making yourself look old enough that people don't think that you're too young to know what you're talking about, but young enough that people don't dismiss you as that old lady who's talking crazy. So she takes Michaela, and it's in one of the interesting scenes in this book, there is a talking out of why she took Michaela and why she's been teaching her what she has and why she's so upset with Michaela not being grateful for it. And it's very much one of those stories of an older person who's trying to give a younger person what they would have wanted at that age without paying attention to whether or not the younger person has the same likes or dislikes. In Haramis's case, as we know from Black Trillium, she got dumped into being Archimage with no warning, no preparation, no training. And so when you get into this book, she's collecting Michaela early because she's hoping that since Michaela is supposed to be her heir as Archimage, that you give the girl the training that she needs. You make sure that she's ready. You get her prepared. You talk to her about the things she's going to need to know and how everything works. And when Michaela isn't grateful for that, Haramis just becomes very, very upset with her. And there's an interesting scene close to the end of the book where Haramis has, at the end of the book, has it basically shoved in her face just how self-centered she's been. Not precisely selfish, but self-centered. That is, I know when I was her age, I would have loved to be taken away by somebody and told I'm just going to get to study interesting stuff, what I think is interesting, for however long. I would have loved to have been given advance warning of, my fate and trained to do it, and I would have, and that sounds fantastic. But it doesn't occur to her that in much the same way that she didn't want to be Archimage because, for one thing, she had been raised to be heir of the throne, and being told this thing you have been raised to do is not something that you're going to do here, have a career, a life path that you know nothing about. She wasn't very happy with that at the time either, but she's, through the alchemy of the way that we all rewrite our own history to make ourselves sound better in our own heads, and we all do that on some level, she thinks that she would have been happy to be in Michaela's shoes, and she probably would have been happier. But she doesn't think about the fact that Michaela had interests and had a life plan, had things that she wanted to do, and also doesn't think about the fact that she took a 12-year-old girl and isolated her from everyone her own age, from everything she'd ever known, dropped her into a completely alien environment with never a by your leave, and doesn't know or care about anything, and makes that cardinal mistake, which I don't know how often it happens in real life, but it does happen a lot in fiction, of saying, oh, well, you're sulking. Your upset over this situation is just sulking. Sulking is one of those words like shy that I feel probably gets a lot of misuse from people at various points, because what is shyness, or termed shyness, is often a genuine concern and upset about people you don't know whose actions you cannot predict. Small children who are wary of adults are called shy, but they're not shy, they're wary and concerned because they do not know these very large people. Because when you're 4. Everyone who's an adult is very large. In the case of sulkiness, a person who has every right to be upset about a situation is told, oh, well, you're just sulky, which is, again, a belittlement of the validity of a person's feelings, and that's a soapbox that I can get on very, very easily. The belittlement of people's feelings, the statement that what a person is feeling is completely invalid. The thing is, sometimes what people are feeling is invalid, but it happens a lot in books and fiction that what a person is feeling is valid, whether it's that it's completely valid or it's valid based on the fact that they don't know everything, so of what they do know, they have every right to feel that way. As I always say, you make your decisions in life based on the information you actually have at any given time, not the information you have 2 months later after everyone has explained everything to you. But in any event, so this is a book that is mostly about one young woman fighting to turn an enforced destiny into something that is what she wants and what she can live with, and an older woman who doesn't understand or refuses to understand that just because she has done things a certain way, just because she wants things a certain way, doesn't mean that those things are always right at all times for everyone. And at the end of the book, Michaela does wind up becoming the Archimage of Labernock and Rwenda. But one of the things that they do at the end of this is that Michaela and Fionn, who is the boy she was in love with at the start of the book, and who is a character throughout it, because the two of them manage to maintain contact through various magical means. It's effectively an attempt to work out a new way of being an Archimage, which in no small part, of course, has to do with the fact that this is a world that has gone through a massive apocalypse. This is one of those post-apocalyptic fantasy universes where in the distant past there was an apocalypse and the world has basically recovered from the apocalypse at this point, but there are still existing traces of the previous pre-apocalypse world. Hence why I call it post-apocalypse. Post-apocalypse. Because you have post-apocalyptic worlds where everything is horrible, and then you have after the post-apocalypse where things are decent again. And that is what the Black Trillium world is. But it means that all of these things like archimages and so on, that these have to be reestablished and rebuilt in a new idiom based on the new world that they have. And so Fionn and Michaela at the end of the book appear to be setting out to establish what this concept of Archimage actually means in this new idiom. And there's a pseudo-Egyptian cult involved, and there's the Lammergeiers, which are supposed to be giant toothed talking birds. The one on the cover is kind of like an albino vulture rather than what is described in the books, because in Black Trillium they are described as having teeth. Kind of like a giant scary Archaeopteryx, I think. Anyway, so that's all of this series that I'm going to talk about. Obviously, I enjoyed these books and didn't enjoy others, but it's up to whoever decides to read these books on my so-called recommendation, what they like or don't like. And that's everything, and I'll see you all next week.